Alright, so now it's time to measure the spacing for the guides before I wrap them. I'm using, as you can see here, the guide laser aligner. Picked this one up from Mudhole. CRB product, I do believe. Yeah, it's a CRB product. So one side's a laser aligner, so you can get your guides lined up properly, and then the other side is a tape measure, so just an easy way to pull the tape measure all the way to the tip and start marking the measurement for the guides. So I'm going to do that now. Converted all my guide spacings to inches, and so I'm ready to start marking it. I have my blank lined up with the spine side up. Like I said, I don't think it makes a huge difference. I'm going to do this rod with the guides on the spine. Supposedly gives it a little bit more lifting power. It's just kind of arbitrary to me at this point, but that's the way I'm going to go with it. And so I'm going to go ahead and get those marked. So you can see my white marks here all the way up to near the tip. I do have two that are right on a ferrule. This does happen. So here's one here. You can maybe see the ferrule right there off my fingertip, and then my white line. That white mark was originally probably a 1/4 inch from the ferrule end, and so in that case you just move it as close as possible to the ferrule without being like right on top of it. So in this case I moved it to the left on the female end of the ferrule, just enough to where my ferrule wraps, I can kind of integrate it in with the guide wraps. So it'll kind of be like one set of wraps as opposed to two separate ones. But so I had to move it a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch or so up the blank to make that work. And then I had one more right here where I kind of am going to do the same thing. So my mark may be kind of more of a reference there. Once I start doing my ferrule wraps, I'll see how far out they're going to go, and I'll just integrate those two guides into the ferrule wraps. But other than that, goes up to this point. That's where the stripper guide's going to go, and it's time to start wrapping guides. Okay, so I've started my guide wraps. I've done the first couple or few off camera to get my pattern down before I started recording. So I've got two different color combinations that I'm using. For my guides that are at the ferrule, so where the two pieces meet, like this one, I am using a dark green with a chartreuse, a 5-wrap chartreuse inlay. And then for my guides that are kind of in the middle of the blank, like this one, I'm doing the same thing, but this white thread that you see is actually going to be clear after it's treated. So a clear guide wrap with a 5-turn chartreuse inlay. So I've got a couple of these ones done, and I've got the one side done here on this one. So that's the one that I'm going to demonstrate. And the only other thing I've wrapped so far is my wine check, which is right here at the base of the blank, right at the grip. So the purpose of this is to cover any gap that you might have between the blank and the grip. So what you do is you build up a short little bump right up against the cork grip until you fill that gap, and then you taper it out. It's really pretty easy. Doesn't have to be super perfect. This turned out pretty good. So what I did is I wound right at the edge of the cork until I could see no more gap, no more holes kind of sticking up there. I had one hole that made the gap a little wider in one spot. So I just waited till I couldn't see that anymore. Then I tapered it out, and then I attached a hook keeper, which I like to have. It doesn't come in the kit, I bought it separate. And then from there, just finished off that side and did my 5-wrap chartreuse inlay and finished it off. So that's what I have done so far. Put that off to the side, and I'm going to readjust the camera here so you can see how I do this. So to do this other side, I'm going to take the tape off that I was using to hold the guide in place and expose the tip. There's going to be better videos of how to start thread wraps and things like that. I'm not going to get into too much detail with that. The camera's not at a great angle for it, and people have just already put out great videos on the basics of this. So I'm not doing anything super complicated here. Just going to be a simple inlay out here at the end. So kind of what I'm doing is 5 wraps for each step. So I'm going to come on, I'm going to start this, I'm going to do 5 wraps, then I'm going to bring in my inlay, and I'm going to do 5 wraps on the inlay, and then finish it off with the dark. So I end up with kind of fairly even spacing. You kind of got to eyeball it a little bit if you're not exactly counting your wraps, which I'm not very good at doing. So I'll keep that. I'll visually be checking that to make sure my thread wraps are the same width at each step. So just getting this started. I'll try and get my hand out of the way. Alright. Get my thread wrap started here. So I've got 3, 4, 5. I like to go one extra and then pull one loop out. tidies this all up a little bit if you pull a loop out. Just like that. So I'm going to trim this out. This to start a little bit farther away from the guide. So I'm basically just trying to eyeball this distance and this distance. This one's a little bit more than I had been doing because it's also my ferrule wrap, so I wanted a fairly wide band of thread there. So I want to make it even on this side. Just a little bit more. Alright. So this is where I'm going to start bringing in my thread inlays right here. Get my piece of chartreuse. I like to give this about 5 wraps. About 5. Now we want to pull this waist piece through to hide the end. You gotta be real careful when you get close. You don't want to pull it all the way through. Just under those extra thread wraps that we put in. It's pretty close. Two additional wraps here, just to make sure I don't lose that. So one extra little bunch. There we go. Okay, so now we're ready to do this inlay. So basically all you do once this is in is you just pinch these together and run them together. Now, if you want a 5-loop inlay, you initially do 6 rotations, and then you pull the last one out to leave 5. And that helps what is my darker color, grab the chartreuse at the end when you pull that last loop out of the chartreuse. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I pinch this. Just take the chartreuse, which is the inlaid piece, and take 1 rotation out of that. Hold it at this 90-degree angle, and then I should be able to just turn my remaining thread over that, and that should pinch that. So now that I have it pinched, since I'm right up against the guide here, I need to push everything in. So I'll do that. It just kind of cleans all those initial wraps up. And I want to kind of shift all of this a little bit, because I got a little close to the guide there, closer than I did on the other side. Oops. slowly just going to work all this over. Obviously it's easier to get this right in the beginning, but just to show that you can adjust it if you need to. Alright. I'm going to put a couple more wraps in, and then I'm going to cut out the chartreuse. It's right at the right angle, so it's not showing. And one more turn, we should be able to cut that out. That up close. And now we can just finish wrapping this guide, and that'll cover up that trim piece. Right at the guide. Oops. So for me, I found the easiest way to do these guides is to get right on the tip and then kind of open up my loops a little bit and take 6 or 7 loops up on the guide. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, just to be safe. So they're all kind of spread out. Now I can pinch these down and be real careful around the foot of the guide, because you want these to just ever so slightly slide onto your previous loops. You don't want them to, you don't want to be too hard on it and have them pop totally off and go under your guide, because then you're going to have to unwrap them and do it again. So I'll kind of slowly work this way. It just seems to work a little better if you get a somewhat substantial amount of wraps. A little harder to work over, but they seem to sit a little better for me. So I'm just gently finishing that off. And now you can see it's a nice clean transition there. So I just finish the bottom, clean that up, and now it's just a matter of wrapping the rest of this guide. Okay, so you see I've pinched that loop in there, and then just finish wrapping to the end of the guide. And I like to, you really only need 7 or 8 wraps, but I like to put in a lot with this loop tied in, so that it's easier to pull the tag end in and not have it show, not pull through and leave a fuzzy end sticking out of the wraps. It's not a huge deal if it happens. It's going to happen occasionally, especially when you're like me and you're new to this. But if you leave yourself a nice chunk of thread here to pull that through under, you can usually come away pretty clean. Getting close. and I'm trying to get this overall size to match on the two sides, and that's really, really close. So we're just about done here. So now, just your standard finishing procedure. Try and do this without being too much my hand in the way. So I'm going to just pinch off my thread. I'm cutting it off the spool, putting it through the loop that we tied in. Once it's pulled through the loop, I carefully switch hands, and now I'm pulling the tag into the loop, pulling it in under the wraps. Once I get close, just starting to go under the wraps, then I'll cut my tag in tight or close, so that when I pull this through, I don't have a tag end to worry about. But you gotta pull that pretty tight so that you keep tension on the line. Then I'll pull this through, and if you pull it through at a 90-degree angle, these loops are gonna compress and the fuzzy end is gonna come out. So I like to pull it kinda down at an angle, diagonally, and then that tends to work a little better. You can see no fuzzy end. That's a good clean finish. So now that these two are done, I just take the brandishing tool and rub these down pretty good so that the threads are nice and flat and ready for epoxy. So that's pretty much it. That's how I'm doing all the guides. So again, this color combo, because it's right at the ferrule, is getting my ferrule color combination, which is dark green with a chartreuse. My other guides that aren't next to the ends of the sections are going to get clear wraps with chartreuse trim inlaid into them. So the rest of them are going to get, I think I have one more that's at a ferrule that's going to get the dark color. But other than that, that is how you wrap the guides, and I'll probably do most of the rest of them off camera unless I come up with something else that I think is helpful.